Hello and welcome to the weekly Rushes, your rush through all the streaming and movie news of the week. We've been at the Sundance Film Festival this week, interviewing all sorts of directors, watching all sorts of films. They'll all be landing on the channel at various times. Little interview sort of clips, and we'll be reviewing the films in full and properly for the channel across time. But how are you? I've got my coffee. I'm good to go. Oh, I literally just missed my mouth. That's too hot, even for me, too hot to trot. So what's the news this week? There's lots of news this week, actually. The top news story that I'm going to share with you is the story around Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise's most successful box office hit of all time. The follow-up to the original 1986 movie, Top Gun, which is, how many years is that? That's 35 years ago. Is it 35 years ago? Let me try and work it out. 96, 2006, 35 years ago, which is curiously apt because Top Gun Maverick has had a lawsuit taken out against it by the people or the individuals that had written the original article in it, because the original Top Gun was based on an article written in 1983 for California magazine, written by Ehud Yoneh. Specifically, the legal dogfight is between the Israeli-based widow, so it's the widow of the original writer of the article, have filed a lawsuit against Top Gun, which claims that Paramount have breached copyright. The suit that was filed is seeking an injunction to stop screenings and distribution of the newly released film. Now, the timing of this is curious because apparently there's a sort of 30-year copyright window, and so the claimants are, or the family of the author of the original article are claiming that Top Gun didn't license or didn't continue to license the use of the original story, if you like, in order to make this derivative sequel to the original film. So essentially they're still trading on the content of the original story. It's a moot one because the timing of the lawsuit seems curious. Why wait until the film has been released? Because presumably you're clearly just after the money from the box office. Maybe they were waiting to see if it was a box office hit or a box office turkey. But now it's a box office hit, they're obviously after the money. I'm certain that Paramount themselves will have had legal teams looking into this in extraordinary detail. So the idea that this would have been they would have been blindsided or missed a sort of detail in copyright law strikes me as highly unlikely. The original piece was called Top Guns, and it was about the pilots and program that was located in a second-floor cubby of offices at the east end of Hangar 1 at Miramar. And the author, Yoneh, was actually even credited in the credits of the original Top Gun film. A lawyer representing the original writer's widow states this: much as Paramount wants to pretend otherwise, they made a sequel to Top Gun after they lost their copyright. So there's the argument that Paramount had the copyright ownership for I think the original ruling was 30 years. So I think Paramount could be in trouble here. I don't think it's a given that this is just an opportunistic strike. This could be quite a massive dogfight in the sky. This could, and so it's going to be intriguing to see if all this money that Top Gun makes and all of the back ends and everything that Tom Cruise. Could you imagine that once it's roared into the skies and it's taken off and it's probably going to become the most successful post-pandemic film of all time? Well, of all post-pandemic time, you know what I mean? That most of the money's going to have to go to the widow of the guy who wrote the original article. I mean, wouldn't that be bizarre? Ezra Miller, Flash. Ezra Miller's back in the news. Obviously, he's been having all sorts of issues in Hawaii. He seems to be quite attached to throwing unattached objects in bars at people. He's been in quite a few fracas. He's been in quite a few scraps. This is an issue because, of course, he's in the new movie, The Flash, which is coming out in theatres in June 2023. So it's a big deal for DC. This is going to, the idea is that, I think Michael Keaton's reprising his role as Batman in it. It's a big movie. It's a tentpole movie for DC and Warner Brothers next year. And Ezra Miller he can't seem to stay out of the headlines. So the latest story is that the parents of an 18-year-old called Takata Iron Eyes. Now, the names of the people involved in this is because the Takata comes from an Native American Indian reservation. But the parents of Takata Iron Eyes have filed paperwork asking a judge to issue an order of protection against the actor on behalf of their child. They state, Ezra uses violence, intimidation, threat of violence, fear, paranoia, delusions, and drugs to hold sway over a young adolescent Takata. That's what it says in the filing. At just 12, the parents of Takata claim that Miller gave Takata alcohol and drugs and flew the child to London and to places such as Vermont, California, Hawaii again. I don't know if Ezra Miller has a Hawaiian connection. Maybe they are born in Hawaii. And it was in Hawaii, obviously, that Miller was arrested twice for altercations in various bars and second-degree assault and stuff like that. In a sense, these are grooming allegations that are being levelled at Ezra Miller by the parents of an 18-year-old. As I understand it, I think Ezra Miller and Takata are together somewhere. Because the other development of the story is that they are struggling, Takata's parents are struggling to actually issue the papers. They literally can't find them in order to issue them with the order of protection for their child. The issue here is that although Takata is 18, the parents are still considered the teen's legal guardians under tribal court rules. So there is a Native American Indian legal system here that operates differently to the American legal system too. It's a complicated story, and it's a really mucky one in a sense for DC, because how do they manage this? Because if this gains sort of speed, or if they manage to serve this issue, and if Ezra is found guilty of some kind of grooming offence, what do you do with a vehicle like Flash, the movie, in which they are the star? Tragically this week, Julie Cruz, the singer and collaborator with David Lynch, died at the age of 65. Her ethereal song, Music Falling, was the theme tune to Twin Peaks. She worked with David Lynch's longtime musical collaborator, Angelo Badalamenti, on the soundtrack to things like Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks and what have you. Her husband went on the B-52s Facebook page, because apparently she used to sing with the B-52s at times. She wasn't, I don't think she was the original singer, but she used to perform with them. And her husband said, "She left this realm on her own terms. No regrets. She's at peace. I played her B-52 song Roam during her transition. Now she will roam forever. Rest in peace, my love." And she died apparently after battling systemic lupus. David Lynch obviously said, "I just found out that the great Julie Cruz passed away. Very sad news. So it might be a good time to appreciate all the good music she made and remember her as being a great musician, great singer, and a great human being, Julie Cruz." Two big musical biopics heading our way, guys, and casting is the big sort of focus for both of them. An Amy Winehouse biopic is in the works. It's they're currently scouting around to cast for the lead role. Janice and Mitch Winehouse, Amy Winehouse's parents, have given the biopic the go-ahead. They're using the very, very influential and famous and significant British casting director Nina Gold, to find the likely candidate. She's apparently trawling through all sorts of performing schools and stage schools and theatre schools and all things like that. Janice and Mitch Winehouse, Amy Winehouse's parents, have given the project the permission to use Amy Winehouse's music, which is key. That was the difference really to something like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man. You want the music, you need to access the music, but in accessing the music you obviously run the risk, as I've sort of talked a lot, and we're going to talk about it in the next story, of a hagiography, i.e. how honest a portrait is this? Does it really matter how honest a portrait it is? Is it really, are these biopics which are sanctioned by the families and estates, are they really opportunities to just further the legend and maximise the intellectual property and I guess thereby the revenue? Who knows? If you can, why not? Mitch and Janice, her parents, were very upset with the Oscar-winning documentary by Asif Kapadia, the film Just Amy. I thought it was absolutely sensational. They made their own documentary for BBC Two, but the casting director, Nina Gold, was responsible also for casting or finding such actresses as Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner for Game of Thrones, and even Daisy Ridley for The Force Awakens. She says of kind of finding these sort of, the right sort of talent for a role like Amy Winehouse, she says you do need to make a decent stab at making them look a bit similar to the real person. It can be quite a lot to do with capturing the essence, though, rather than a look-alike approach. So it's not just going to be about being a look-alikey, or presumably a good singer, but they've got to feel right too. The other musical biopic news of the week is the story that went on our Popcorn Junkies Instagram account. Julia Garner has been cast, or has been offered. It's really important, I think, to draw the distinction. She's been offered the lead role as Madonna in Madonna's very own biopic. Let's not forget, Madonna is writing or has written this film about herself. She's also directing this film about herself. So whilst I've always had, and you've heard me talk about this many times, quibbles with these biopics, that how honest can they be, how jaundiced will they be, how sort of sycophantic are they if they're made by the estate of the musician? Are they just going to say that everything was good and everything was great? And even when they home in on the stuff that was bad, is it only going to be the rock and roll bad that's kind of good for the brand, if you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm sure Keith Moon's family don't mind anyone going on about how many TVs he threw out the window or Rolls Royces he crashed into swimming pools. I mean, that adds to the brand, doesn't it? So it'll be interesting to see how will Madonna manage her own legacy. And in the telling, you know, for me, Madonna hasn't got a great record for directing. She's directed a couple of absolute turkeys, you know, and she's not brilliant. She acknowledged she wasn't a brilliant actress and she wasn't great in many of the films. Desperately Seeking Susan was perhaps the most sort of nostalgic, if you like, or successful. Madonna says of this, "I want to convey the incredible journey that life has taken me on as an artist, a musician and a dancer, a human being trying to make my way in this world. The focus of this film will always be music. Music has kept me going and art has kept me alive. There are so many untold and inspiring stories, and who better to tell it than me?" of course. It's essential to share the rollercoaster ride of my life with my voice and my vision, so I can be in total control of it, presumably. But Julia Garner has been, they've got down to Julia Garner. It's anyone's guess as to whether Julia Garner will take it. I personally, if I was advising Julia Garner, I'd say, yeah, it's really nice to be offered, but I'd say no. I really would say no. Universal are behind the picture, but I personally would say no. What would you say? Yummity yum yum. Joker! The Joker news. Again, we popped this on our Popcorn Junkies Instagram account because it was too exciting. It looks like the Joker sequel is a go. Once again, Joaquin Phoenix hasn't confirmed or hasn't signed up, hasn't touched a contract to quote the Amber Heard's solicitors, who seem to always want a document, but pretty much the sense of things is we've seen got a photo somewhere of Joaquin Phoenix reading the script of a second Joker film. So he hasn't quite signed up, but he's read it. He's already read it. Director Todd Phillips revealed this as much on his Instagram account. The script is called Joker Folie à Deux. Folie à deux. And the meaning of the phrase is this: a delusion or mental illness shared by two people in close association. Multiple personality disorder. I think it's safe to say that the Joker has some kind of sort of mental personality disorder. Whether this is going to be a cleft within his personality, whether this refers to the split personality within him. But a lot of fans have got very excited about the fact that Willem Dafoe, in an interview for GQ, was talking about the possible idea of there being an imposter Joker, i.e. someone who was, imitating what the Joker was doing. A sort of maybe a fan even, someone who was kind of riffing off what Phoenix's Joker was doing. So you could have this alter ego that isn't an alter ego of Joaquin Phoenix necessarily, but he's an alter ego culturally. And so you've got Phoenix's Joker and you'll have Willem Dafoe's. The idea of just Willem Dafoe's face and Joaquin Phoenix's faces, or Joaquin Phoenix's faces together like this. Oh my God, I mean, Willem Dafoe was an iteration of the Joker, even if it's a fraudulent Joker. So, the DC fansphere or the DC multiverse has gone nuts with all of the kind of, rumor mills and what possible layers of kind of complexity could there be to this. So I think it's going to be rich. The first Joker obviously grossed over $1 billion. It's the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. And I can guarantee you that if Phoenix does sort of sign up to this, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that he does, and he will, this will probably become the next highest, or will probably outdo the original Joker, don't you? Because I think we'll all be very excited about watching this. Couple of new casting stories. Not a lot is known about this project in terms of the absolute subject matter, but Scarlett Johansson has signed up to star in Christine Scott Thomas's directorial debut, which is called My Mother's Wedding. And it also stars John Micklethwaite, Sienna Miller, Emily Beecham and Frida Pinto too. But as I say, we don't necessarily know what it's exactly about, but there's a clue in the title, My Mother's Wedding. Anthony Hopkins has joined Zack Snyder, he of Justice League and all that kind of stuff, and Army of Darkness and all that kind of stuff. Anthony Hopkins is joining Zack Snyder's Netflix sci-fi adventure, which is called Rebel Moon. He's not actually appearing in it, Anthony Hopkins. I think he's playing the voice of a character or a robot or something called Jimmy, which is an impossibly sentient JC-1435 mechanized battle robot. Rebel Moon, apparently, this new movie by Zack Snyder. He has a huge following, Zack Snyder. Are you a Zack Snyder fan? I don't know. I quite like Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut. Rebel Moon is set in a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy that finds itself threatened by the armies of the tyrannical regent Balisorius, then dispatching a young woman with a mysterious past to seek out warriors from neighbouring planets to help them make a stand. It sounds like an epic space battle war opera. Anthony Hopkins. Harry Styles is in, obviously, we're getting very excited about him in the Don't Worry Darling, the Taylor spy that came out with him and Florence Pugh. Looks very exciting, very gripping, very tense, and very, I'm really looking forward to that. He's in another movie called My Policeman, and My Policeman is a movie, let me give you the blurb. It's set in the 1950s in Brighton. Harry Styles plays a younger gay policeman named Tom who marries a school teacher named Marion whilst being in a relationship with someone called Patrick, who's a museum curator. The secret they share threatens to ruin them all. And the film essentially flips between the 1950s, where Harry Styles plays the younger Tom, and up to the 1990s, where Linus Roach plays the older Tom. It's based on the Bethan Roberts book, and it promises to be quite, I think, Harry Styles is taking on some really varied roles. If you think he was at the end of the Eternals as that strange character, I can't remember what his name was, but he was very curious in that. So he's got a bit of comedy chops. He's got a bit of sort of sinister kind of romantic lead in this, in Don't Worry Darling. And now this too, a very, very layered. I mean, he's clearly his his movie career is moving along at a heck of a pace. Great news around the Ghostbusters franchise. Jason Reitman and co, obviously the son of Ivan Reitman, who did the originals. It looks like there is going to be a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. For me, Ghostbusters Afterlife was one of the best iterations of Ghostbusters. It was a brilliant sequel to the original two films. Park the female populated version to the side. That wasn't significant, not at all. But there is going to be a sequel. It's going to be set in New York. It's going to feature the same young actors. McKenna Grace's Phoebe and Finn Wolfhard's Trevor are going to be making a return. And I think that's something to be excited about. There's also talk of there being, Jason Reitman's also planning an animated Ghostbusters series. And in terms of directors, new projects, Steve McQueen, the director, has landed, his new project has landed essentially at Apple. Obviously, Steve McQueen, the director of 12 Years a Slave, Shame, Hunger, Widows. Didn't like Widows, loved 12 Years a Slave though. Shame was amazing and Hunger was astonishing. He also obviously won countless BAFTAs for Small Axe, his series about West Indian immigrants from various different perspectives and vantage points. His new film, so he's returning to the big screen. His new film is called Blitz. We know nothing more other than it is obviously stories from Londoners during the Blitz of World War II. And I wonder whether, given his track record, whether it might be a look at the Blitz through the lenses, if you like, of minority cultures or immigrants or something like that. There might be some other sort of aspect to this. I'd have thought, if you've got Steve McQueen directing with his track record, there's going to have to be some other layer to it, I'd have thought. Streaming news, Fargo, brilliant series, though I don't know why we paused at the point. Was it Ewan McGregor who was in one of them? Yeah, we sort of paused after the first one or two series of Fargo. Brilliant, a continuation obviously of the Coen brothers film. Fargo season 5 is coming, and they've cast Juno Temple, John Hamm and Jennifer Jason Leigh in the 5th series that's being produced obviously by Noah Hawley. Not much is being revealed about the plot, as we know, but we do know that it's the most contemporary one yet, or it's set to be the most contemporary one yet. It's set in 2019, and apparently it will answer 2 questions. When is a kidnapping not a kidnapping? Always a great question to ask in a sort of drama series or, slick kind of streaming show. And what if your wife isn't yours? What a curious question. What if your wife isn't yours? And when is a kidnapping not a kidnapping? Brilliant. I'll never forget, Nadia never recovered from the idea that when it says based on a true story, filmmakers can be lying. They can just write that, because they can write anything, because they're filmmakers. A series that's gone down so well in this household, almost as well as Squid Game, if not slightly better, I'm beginning to wonder, is All of Us Are Dead Here. I started this, and then for some reason everyone in the room said, yeah, it's okay. And then everyone went back to it without me. All of Us Are Dead is another South Korean drama on Netflix. It pivots around, it's set within a school, so it's kind of young adult, but it's nothing like Riverdale or anything like that. No, not at all. This is set in a school, and it's about basically the students of a school being run over, rampaged, eaten, possessed, taken over by zombies. So it's basically a group of students trapped in a high school, and they find themselves in a dire situation. A zombie invasion goes absolutely nuts everywhere. So you've got refectories, you've got classrooms, you've got teachers, you've got zombies. It's lots of gore, lots of drama, lots of chasing, and apparently they've ordered it for season 2. Apparently it kind of rode in on the coattails of Squid Game, and so there's a huge appetite for this Korean content on Netflix. But it went down an absolute storm in this house. So if you fancy some escapist, gory fun, I would say All of Us Are Dead. I've got to play catch up. Again, I've got to add that now to Obi-Wan Kenobi, Stranger Things, The Boys, and All of Us Are Dead Season 1. Oh my God, there's not enough time. And the final story of the week, which is a fun one, is swinging robotic SpiderMan malfunctions at the Disney California Avengers campus. And I just want you to watch this because it's funny. Let's watch this together. This is what happened when visitors went to the theme park. And this is what happened. And imagine the shock. I mean, it's so lifelike when you see what happens. He's so lifelike.
Here goes something. Sharon, airbags, please.
The weapon facility is not equipped with airbags.
Okay.
I tell you what's clever about that.
Here goes something. Sharon, airbags, please.
The weapon facility is not equipped with airbags.
Okay.
So what's amazing about that story is, apart from the fact that if our girls had been there, that would have been the most exciting thing that had ever happened in any of our lives. So that would have just been so cool, watching the Spider-Man bot go rogue, was the fact that line of commentary, there's no airbags and something, and then Peter Parker saying, whoa, yes, or whatever it was he said at the end there, that kicks in if a mistake happens. So the system embraces the possibility of it all going wrong, which for me means that which is quite funny to watch, is a bit like Westworld, isn't it? It's a bit like Westworld. Which brings us to films of the week, and there's quite a rich selection of films this week. The first film I'm going to suggest is Swan Song. Swan Song stars the German actor Udo Kier. You'll recognise him as soon as you see him. He's been in loads of things. He plays really curiously odd characters, and in this he plays a sort of retired, end of his life hairdresser in a sort of home of sorts, and he's pulled out of retirement essentially to go and do the hair for an old client or someone that he used to work with who's dead, basically for her funeral. And so it's a character portrait of this Udo Kier. It sounds like it's camp, it sounds very funny, it sounds quirky and kooky. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm a big fan of Udo Kier. He's weird. I just can't stop looking at him. He's got such a fascinating face. But I even like the idea that he's making up a corpse essentially, and so I think you could have a lot of fun with Swan Song. Earwig is a curious sort of indie kind of gruesome fairy tale type thing. Let me read you the blurb. It says, somewhere in Europe, mid-20th century, Albert is employed to look after Mia, a girl with teeth of ice. You've got me hooked at the pitch if you've got a character with teeth of ice. Apparently it's very atmospheric, it's very dark, it's very twisted. I'm sort of getting the novella yellow wallpaper. She's in a room, it's in a sort of housing estate of some form, or battered old buildings, and it's all gloopy and she's trapped, and fairy tale, weird, eerie, earwiggy, and even the head title, Earwig, what not to like. So I think if you fancy eerie, unsettling, dark and twisted, fairy tale-y stuff, I think Earwig is for you. If you want a comedy, All My Friends Hate Me is out this week, which is kind of like a comedy horror. That's I think that's Toffee coming in, is it? That's Toffee going out. British comedy horror directed by Andrew Gaynord. Think Peter's Friends, but when Pete essentially heads off to see all of his friends, Pete's friends' behaviour sort of begins to change. He thinks it's a game. I think that he thinks they're playing a game, but things take a more sinister turn as perhaps his friends' attitudes towards him aren't particularly funny anymore. All My Friends Hate Me. So maybe they start with a bit of a riff. Lots of room for kind of, mistaken identity or mistaken behaviour, people being cruel and harsh, but it takes a sort of more gruesome turn as Peter tries to work out whether all his friends do in fact hate him. And then of course the big box office release of the week, which is getting terrible reviews everywhere. We will be also looking at this. We're going to be reviewing all of these for the channel actually, is Jurassic World Dominion. Most notable for the fact possibly that it brings together obviously Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, but it also brings back the old guard, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill. So although it might not be a particularly brilliant film, if you fancy a bit of nostalgic take back to the good old days of Jurassic World, the original films, it might be a nostalgia fest. Maybe they're trying to do a little bit of that legacy sequel thing that they did with Top Gun Maverick. Maybe it will deliver on that front. Apparently there's just not enough jeopardy. I think everyone just keeps escaping things all the way through the film. Those are your films of the week. And there you have this week's The Weekly Rushes, your rush through all the streaming and movie news of the week. And there was a lot there, wasn't there? Tell us what your thoughts are, and I hope you have a wonderful film watching weekend.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.